It was the only thing left in that room that wasn't completely drenched with blood. The teddy bear just sat there in the corner of the bed, head lopsidedly tilted, watching with empty glass eyes. It was nothing special. Bears like it existed in every toy shop for miles around. Hell, my daughter, Maria, even had one very similar. I didn't recognize the make, but hey, I'm no stuffed animal fanatic. As a piece of evidence, it had little value, but we bagged it anyways. As the CSIs will tell you, you never know when a piece of crime scene could become useful. And so the teddy bear now sits in our evidence room, locked behind several meters of cold steel, never to be hugged again. Only one day, it just vanished. And I don't mean we misplaced it and couldn't find it. I mean it literally vanished from the room, leaving its airtight plastic bag behind, now unzipped from left to right. That was the only reason any of us knew it was missing. Of course, my first impulse was to question colleagues. Only about 10 people have access to the evidence room whilst an investigation such as this one was still in full flow, and security is tight in the precinct, so it seemed like the most plausible explanation. Only, none of the guys knew anything about it. They swore, hand on heart, that they had never touched the damn thing. In fact, many of them claimed to be spooked by it after seeing it brought in. The sole witness to a horrific crime, stained by blotches of red that might never be washed out. And why would I doubt them? These were police officers and forensic scientists, professionals in every sense of the word, and loyal to our tightly knit precinct. After a couple of days, I probably would have forgotten about that teddy bear. It was a peculiar thing, but not the kind of thought that would keep me up at night, especially not with the hours that I put in. But then, it happened. One of our guys was going to do some cataloguing in the evidence room. Mundane stuff, to be sure, with only a cup of strong black coffee to keep them from a boredom-induced snooze. Only, when he arrived that morning, back hunched over and dark patches running rings around his eyes, he found it. The damn teddy bear was sitting out on the table waiting for him. At this point, I was pretty damn certain that somebody was playing a prank on us. It wasn't unheard of in our offices. Stuff happens after all. But these guys were mostly straight-laced and hard-working, not to mention how morbid this case was. It would take a pretty sick sense of humor to do something like this, and I just couldn't think of anyone who could or would have done it. But a prank it had to be. There was no other explanation I was willing to entertain. The bear went missing several times over the next week, always reappearing back in the evidence room like nothing had ever happened. Once it was me who found the thing sitting out on the table, and, in my sleep and coffee-deprived state, I could have sworn I saw the thing's head turn to face me. Those piercing black holes in its face locked onto my rigid form. The dark plays tricks on you. I only know this from my childhood. Every person who has ever lain awake at night, tortured by visions of shadowy beasts and horned monstrosities lurking underneath their beds, knows this. But this felt like something more. Quickly, it went from being a harmless prank to a source of great anguish. The bear stopped appearing solely in the evidence room, cropping up everywhere from office drawers to the water cooler in the foyer. Hell, one guy said he found the thing perched on a ledge in the bathroom, eyes fixed upon the door, just waiting to be discovered. Like it was playing a game of hide and seek. Our guys were starting to get antsy. frustrated with the lack of explanations. If somebody had come forward and claimed responsibility for all of this, then I would have kissed them. Anything to put the paranoid thoughts to rest and end this waking nightmare. By this point, we'd stopped putting the thing back in the evidence room. We tried to get rid of it, first scrubbing it up and taking it to a charity shop, only to find it back by the espresso machine the next day, once again splattered with blood. Then we took it to the dump and watched it with gleeful faces as the thing was thrown into a heap of rubbish and incinerated, the flames licking away at its frayed fur. I think it enjoyed that, because when it turned up back at the photocopying room, its face was twisted into a horrifying grin, its dark eyes chiding us with the playfulness of a misbehaving child, eager to drive its parents as far around the bend as it could. Don't try and tell me we should have ignored it. We tried. When we didn't acknowledge the thing, it would turn up on our desks with a pair of scissors, surrounded by the eviscerated, illegible remains of our documentation. One guy even had a picture of his wife broken, the point of the scissors used to gouge holes in her eyes. The message was clear. We played the game, or we suffered. By now, as one might expect, this whole ordeal was taking its toll on us. Those of us who worked the evening shift stopped sleeping at all, paralyzed by the thoughts of that damn bear, terrified that one day it was going to show up in our beds. A lot of trainees got up and left with very little notice. Even a couple of veteran officers clamoured with our superiors for an immediate transfer. Almost none of them were given any attention. Nobody outside our precinct could comprehend why a building full of mature adults was so terrified of a stuffed toy animal. I can't blame them. This whole thing sounds insane. But if you are here, you might understand what it feels like. We were being hunted. Things really took a turn when the bear turned up in one of our forensic guy's car. He found the bloodstained toy resting on his back seat, seatbelt drawn across its fluffy waist, lips drawn wide apart, in a smile of pure malevolence. The panicked realization hit us all at the same time, I think. Unspoken, but there, nagging at us like a memory shuffled to the back of our minds. The bear wanted to get out. It had grown bored of playing here with us. You might think that this would come as a relief to us after months and months of constant torment from this thing. But it didn't. Because if it wanted to get into one of our cars, that meant it was trying to get back to our homes. When we realized this, the final match was lit, and life descended into anarchy. One of our officers, Charlie, a good friend of mine, got himself arrested. He'd broken into the munitions department at a bigger precinct, the bear tucked away in his rucksack. Investigators said he'd used up to 5 kilograms of explosives. It still wasn't enough. The bear showed up at his trial a few months later, sat in one of the empty seats in the jury, just watching him. Poor Charlie. 15 years in the psychiatric ward for a completely rational and sane action. As for me, my wife left me not long after. She called the police on me. On me. Told them she was afraid that I might resort to violence against her or our daughter after she had found me cutting up Maria's teddy bear with a kitchen knife. My colleagues just nodded understandingly at me. They didn't even try and cuff me. Well, My family being gone gave me some time, so I did some research. Did you know that production lines in China can make up to 500,000 teddy bears in a week? That's a whole lot of stuffing. You see, I can't even focus my thoughts anymore, because I know that someday soon, that bear's gonna show up at my home, and it's going to butcher me like a fat pig. I'm ready for it. I used my contacts in the department to procure some heavy-duty artillery. Let's see that bear come back from a full round of M60 bullets. A forensic was found dead, hung from a door frame. They said it was suicide, brought on from an undiagnosed bout of severe depression. But I know better. The bear got to him. That means it's tying up loose ends. I guess the game is over. But all of this was months ago. I'm writing all of this now because I know it's my last chance. The bear is making its final play. Yesterday was my date in court. Custody over Maria. Only, I couldn't focus on a damn thing that stupid judge was saying. You know why? Because I saw my daughter. The first time in such a long, long time. My little angel. She was watching me from her seat, tears brimming in her little blue eyes because she wasn't allowed to hug with Daddy. It broke my weak old heart. But do you know what was worse? What makes me come out in cold sweats, bile rising through my guts like a trickle of ice water every time I remember it? Well, take a wild guess as to what Maria was holding in her hands.